In the first two videos of my series on classroom management, I discussed the foundational steps that teachers should attend to. First, paying it forward with preparation, and second, developing a habit of mind as a confident educator. In this video, I'll discuss a third aspect of classroom management, which addresses the multifaceted nature of each class of students. I describe each classroom as a kaleidoscope that reflects all the different personalities within the classroom, which includes all of the students and the teacher, each with its own unique characteristics, strengths, needs, abilities, and personalities. Often, teachers greet students on the first day of class facing a room full of strangers, and students meet a teacher they know nothing about. It's important that you begin from that very first moment, building a classroom community with an understanding of the kaleidoscope that is being constructed with your class. You can't really understand the kaleidoscope metaphor without knowing its various parts and how it works. You can find various websites that describe the elements of the kaleidoscope and even how to make your own DIY kaleidoscope. What you need are a tube of some sort, 2 or 3 mirrors, and some colorful items like glass beads, buttons, or confetti. Once constructed, a kaleidoscope is like an analogy of your classroom community. You see, your classroom space is like the tube that encapsulates everything within your classroom community. All the colorful items represent the students and teacher or teachers in the room, and the mirrors represent what appears as light is reflected off the colorful items as they interact with each other. The resulting image seen in the kaleidoscope is what I call the amazing kaleidoscope of interaction that exists with effective teaching and learning. It's a beautiful thing. That's what we're all aiming for as education professionals. When considering this analogy, you can begin to understand how each student in your class impacts you as the teacher, every other student in your class, and themselves, as well as their ability to learn in your classroom environment. If you have problems with classroom management, it's most likely because you don't really understand the interaction that is reflected in the kaleidoscope. Effective teachers understand this interaction and understand that teaching is about the content being taught, and the act of teaching is dependent on the relationship between and among the members of the class. It won't work if you don't genuinely know your students as a teacher. I say as a teacher because you shouldn't think of yourself as a buddy or peer. You need to know them as co-learners in your class. And students need to know you as a teacher and have confidence in you as a professional educator. So I suggest taking the first day of class to establish this relationship within the context of a classroom community. Some teachers begin with class rules, but without establishing this relationship, the rules will not work effectively. I'd recommend beginning your relationship with your students by gathering some data. No, not the kind of data associated with assessments, but the kind of data that results from a class survey. And make it fun. Now, don't simply find an inventory or an instrument or survey online. I mean, they're plentiful, but often address extraneous factors that won't necessarily be interesting to you or your students as you begin your educational journey together. Make your own survey. Questions should reflect your community of learners in general and will be different based on the developmental level or age of your students. I don't want to be too specific since this should be a survey that you construct. However, some suggestions for a middle school class might include: do you think of yourself as a gamer? How many students play a sport? How many students are wearing sneakers or gym shoes, boots, or other types of shoes? Would you rather read a book or a graphic novel or nothing at all? The point is to get students to think about all the members of a class and the classroom community. Limit the survey to about 10 questions that aren't too intrusive, emotionally laden, or invade students' privacy. You can tabulate information on the board or screen. Be sure that you, as the teacher and co-learner in the classroom, respond to each item. For example, in a class of 20 students, you can note that 6 of the students identify as gamers, 12 students identify as non-gamers, and 3 don't identify as either a gamer or non-gamer, a total of 21 responses. After completing the survey, you can have a discussion about the resulting data from the classroom community. Ask the class to work with you in analyzing the data to create a description of the class. Write the description with the class, beginning with, as a class, we, ... Include language like, approximately 28% of our class report that they think of themselves as gamers, etc. When you have time, you may want to create a bar graph or other visual depictions of the data to share with your class the next day. This will serve as a reminder of the class community, and you may find it informative to you as a teacher in planning learning activities for your students. Is it time now to establish your class rules? Maybe. Your school should have a code of conduct, however. That's sort of the ultimate document that establishes your school's expectations. I would be sure that students have a copy of that document. Homework on the first day of school might be to ask your students to read the code of conduct. However, when you develop your classroom rules is dependent on several factors, such as expectations from your school's administration, the characteristic of your school and community, and how smoothly your class is operating from the first day. If things are going smoothly, why interrupt the smoothness to talk about rules? Why not get to know your class and students a bit more first? How do you get to know your students better? Well, begin teaching your content, but build in opportunities for students to work with each other. And while they're working, move around the room, being with and among your students. Talk to them about what they're doing. You'll learn a lot about them, their learning styles, whether they are shy or reluctant to speak, which students exhibit leadership qualities, which ones like to joke, etc. Consider doing another survey at the end of the week with a different set of similar questions. Your interactions with your students will provide you with a different set of questions, and your students will have an opportunity to analyze the data and add to their description of the classroom community. After you've established the classroom environment as a place of learning in which each student is valued, you can establish your classroom expectations with your students. If students are involved in this process, they're most likely to adhere to these expectations. Notice that I'm referring to expectations and not rules. Your school's code of conduct has all the rules. You have expectations, however, for your students, and they have expectations for themselves and each other because it's a community of learners composed of students and a teacher or teachers. It's a kaleidoscope that reflects an amazing array of teaching and learning. Now that we've established a foundation of effective classroom management by paying it forward with preparation and building confidence as a professional educator, and the importance of establishing a classroom community, we'll talk about next steps and what to do when things aren't going as smoothly as you planned, when students aren't meeting expectations.